And we are live. I'm Dr. Christopher Vogelmann here with the lovely, talented, and ever so productive Monika Klein, nutritionist to the stars, somewhere in Southern California.
Somewhere out there.
We're not going to wait till the fat lady sings. And by that, I mean P-H-A-T.
Just the fats, ma'am.
Just the fats, ma'am.
Just the fats, ma'am. And that's what we're going to talk about today.
We're talking about fat? Saturated, unsaturated?
All of the above, and it's good to be a fathead, right?
Everybody is a fathead, because if you're not, you have lost all the insulation to your nerve cells.
Exactly. That's a very important thing that fat does. It protects the myelin sheath in the body.
Ooh, my myelin.
Myelin mileage.
You want
body.
high mileage or high myelin?
Yeah.
Hey, so I'm going to drop a link in here in a couple of places where we have this broadcast. And if anybody wants to come in, I don't know why that person is calling. That's from a doctor's office. And we're not going to let her come in right now. She's not part of our group.
I just realized I had not put away my phones because they may be ringing. Hopefully they won't, because I've scheduled 2 telemedicine appointments tomorrow for my
boy.
Yeah, so it's full schedule. So myelin sheath, just one more thing, my husband has 2 autoimmune diseases, and one is something called CIDP, which is chronic chronic inflammatory demyelinating polyneuropathy. That's henceforth it is called CIDP. So
basically it's sucking away his insulators.
Yeah, it is because of the neuropathy, and we were discussing that a little bit last call about the ravages of diabetes.
That's true.
And then neuropathy being one of those. So what about fat? What do we not want to know? We were talking about eggs being maligned now, throughout the years. And of course, everyone was fat-free when in the 70s and 80s, everything was fat-free because we thought that was a good idea, or some people thought it was a good idea. The food industry certainly thought it was a good idea.
It's a great idea.
Cheap food.
Cheap food comes at a high cost.
Cheap food, yeah, and people got sicker and sicker. And of course, fat is one of the major nutrients we need: protein, fat, and carbohydrates. And carbohydrates aren't just cookies and crackers and chips.
It's not just Chips Ahoy?
Not just Chips Ahoy or Oreos or anything like that. Carbohydrates are the best carbohydrates are vegetables and fruit and grains and beans and seeds and nuts. Carbs. Nuts. And of course, some of those carbs, like seeds and nuts, happen to be a really good source of fat as well. So there's still probably a lot of confusion about fat, isn't there? Wouldn't you say?
I would say it, but you're saying it so well, I won't say it right now.
Well, that is the case.
I was sharing the link. I'm sorry, in case people want to come in or ask.
Oh, that's good. You're being techno.
I'm being well, not techno, like no, not like that.
So fats. So there are good fats and there are bad fats. Of course, bad fats usually come in the form of, I say this almost every time we're on, the processed foods, the bags, the boxes, the stuff that is fake food. Really, it's Frankenfood. It's been called everything. So, there's a lot of really good fats and real foods. So the bad fats, I remember I've quoted this, or I've mentioned this many times over the years about margarine, when margarine was like the go-to fat, right?
It's because there was a shortage in World War II of butter. So.
No, I'm talking about, growing up in the 60s, 70s. And people still, so there's some people that still believe that, or you still use it for some reason.
Margarine. I can't believe it's not butter. Well, heck, it's not.
Yeah, it's not, and butter is a good source of a lot of things. But so the margarine, they did an experiment, and they found that the rats won't eat it, the flies won't eat it, and nobody will eat it. None of the animal kingdom.
Well, if flies won't eat it, I sure as heck won't.
So because it's undigestible, it's not very digestible, or
Well, you also get these waxy cell membranes where nothing can get in and nothing can get out.
Yeah, it's impenetrable.
That's the hard part. Yeah, like Crisco. It's nice and hard at room temperature.
Crisco.
It's like that's kind of like what it's like in your body. If your cell membranes, nutrients can't get in and the junk can't get out. So
yeah. So and we've talked about donuts several times, and they keep appearing in my home.
How do they appear? By magic? Do you cast a donut spell?
One of our aides one of his best friends owns a donut shop.
Owns a donut shop.
And so he brings these donuts in almost every day, like 2 or 3 times a week. But it's not just 1 or 2, a big pink box. And so just loaded with, the two biggies, the fat and the sugar. So he said, well, if you burn it off, you'll burn it off. He said,
you'll burn it off.
Burn them off.
By chasing him out the door with his box of donuts.
I can't do that, but I mean,
okay.
Like drop seed ideas. And I said to him, well, that's not the point. The point is that it's going to wreak havoc with your pancreas and your liver for one, and it's, a calorie is not a calorie. And
he's not going to understand that. I'm sorry.
Well,
because he keeps bringing you donuts.
Well, he's not bringing me. He's bringing it for everybody. So it's not
for everybody, for the whole neighborhood. little table out there like Girl Scout cookies.
Well, I don't think the donut shop owner is that generous.
Oh, okay. I gotcha.
His donuts. But anyway, a perfect example of a bad fat food, and very addictive, whether...
And what kind of oil are they frying those suckers in? Is it like soybean oil or linseed or
probably,
God knows what?
Probably. Yeah. I mean, they're deep frying this stuff. And so it's it's a perfect example of a bad fat. So, and these bad fats are hidden. They often are rancid. They're highly processed. They're
rancid. There's nothing like having rotten fat.
Rancid fat.
Rancid. Yeah. I think about the oils that are in fast foods when they're dipping the fries in there and the hash browns and everything else. That oil is not being cleaned regularly or replaced.
Even if it's not being cleaned, it really doesn't matter.
No, it's full of free radicals and crappy stuff.
It's trans fats, which are highly toxic. I mean, these are toxic fats that are wreaking havoc. You might not feel it after one donut, or you might not feel it after 5 years of
after
donut.
Your baker's dozen, you might start feeling.
Well, I don't know if it's just younger people eat them when they're seeming invincible, but yeah, I mean, it's going to show up at some point if you continue eating that way and eating these bad fats. But they're everywhere. And just because
how do you recognize them on labels?
Well, you kind of tricked me here into.
I'm sorry. No, I didn't mean to do any tricking.
I had some products to kind of show you.
I'm just thinking in terms of people trying to identify which processed foods have the worst fats.
Well, hydrogenated and partially hydrogenated vegetable oils and things like that. So these are, not a good thing. They're not a good ingredient to have. And, I could be as puritanical or as purist as I want to be and say, stay away from boxed and bagged foods. But I know
it's hard to do now.
Mostly impossible for the population in general. But and it's hard to do. Well, is it hard to do now? Really?
Sometimes it is. I mean, it depends on it depends on your availability and what you're getting. We've had some challenges getting fresh fruits, vegetables, things like that. We've had some challenges insofar as we've had to resort to some canned foods and a couple of packaged foods here and there. But just because it's packaged doesn't mean it's bad either.
Tell me what's in the package. What kind of foods?
Well, we've had some more natural cookies and things like that we have reserved as snacks because our ice cream consumption is down to almost zero. And so the one cookie once a week or so, that's a major treat. So.
That's another, perfect food, high fat food is ice cream, of course.
That's my nemesis.
Yeah. So, we could go through a list of all the bad things, but why don't we talk about what you can have instead? So you don't feel this sense of deprivation. There's nothing I can eat and everything's bad for me. And just like in the sugar episode, So we talked about avocado in the sugar episode too. We talked about avocado ice cream, right?
Who buys avocado ice cream? I've never.
Well, I don't know if it exists, but I think it probably does.
Oh, it probably does. Yeah.
So some sort of, avocado is being used for desserts and smoothies and all sorts of things. Even you can freeze the avocado as well.
Sure.
So that's easy to do. So, avocado has something like a very high source of glutathione, which is a powerful, powerful antioxidant. And of course, it's got the great fat and the fiber, right? So avocado, good.
Well, people sometimes avoid it because they look at it, it's like over 70% fat, but I mean it's the calories is only 70% fat, but that is the good fat, the unsaturated. Yeah,
it's the good fat. It's like, yeah, I mean, you don't need a lot of it because it is good fat, and the body can understand it and break it down and use it. So it's exceptional. And we talked a little bit about butter and ghee. Ghee is also a wonderful source of these are saturated fats, and the saturated fats were the mostly maligned fats, in the 60s and 70s, or, when it became, fat-free everything. So we have since discovered that saturated fats are good. They're good for brain function. They're good for all sorts of things. And we got to look at fats, like breaking it down. Fats are essential fatty acids. Your body needs essential fatty acids to function. They are precursors to all the hormones in our body. They are essential. So we need fat. We cannot go with no fat. So this non-fat, no-fat focus over the years has been really, really harmful.
Well, and low fat or no fat usually means high sugar, because no fat and no sugar tastes like cardboard.
Yeah. So yeah. And in fact, a lot of foods are just cardboard. Actually, a lot of those kinds of foods.
But they're high in fiber if they're made of cardboard.
Yeah. They're good tasting cardboard, really.
Good tasting cardboard.
Good tasting. Well.
Or plastic. Yeah.
And when I say good tasting, I mean, the more, the healthier you eat, the less you'll find those good tasting, because you'll have a much more a good sense of, your palate will understand what is real, what tastes, what is real and natural. And that's how food should taste. We get so, our palate becomes so obscured, I guess, is
conditioned, or.
Well, the more you eat of this junk food, the less you're sensitive to what foods really taste like or should taste like, or the constant salting of foods. Your taste is off. You can't really taste food anymore because it's all adulterated, it's all hidden, and it's all like, the more exciting the food, the better. It has to have explosion. It has to have like all this excitement attached.
It needs snap, crackle, and pop
and spicy. The spicier the better. The
well,
hotter the better.
Mexican food in this house,
and that's okay when it's real.
It is real. It's very real.
But when it's in your chips or your the other foods, I mean, your palate is conditioned to not knowing what real food tastes like anymore. I think that's what I'm trying to say.
I think it's more that your palate is it's sort of overwhelmed. There's so much salt, so much sugar, so much fat that you no longer can make fine distinctions in how foods really taste.
You can't. Yeah. I mean, it's like salty and sweet is really what the North American diet is all about. Salty and sweet.
It's interesting. So somebody like you who's from Canada calls it the North American diet. We used to call it the standard American diet, or SAD.
Well, I probably
would
call it SAD because there is infiltration of the American way of life in Canada. Although I'd say, we used to sort of joke about the American sizes of plates, when you
supersizing everything.
Supersize. That was not a Canadian phenomenon. And, it was, so it's a little bit less so in Canada, I would say, in general. But because of the friendly neighborliness of our countries, I mean, the American culture is alive and well in many places, actually. Canada.
Eh?
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, McDonald's is everywhere, right?
Yeah, but there's one McDonald's that closed down in Tijuana a couple of months back before all
Why is
this
that?
COVID stuff. I don't
Oh,
know. It could be their rent was too expensive or something. But I noticed, here's
so
an
it's
interesting thing.
COVID related. It was COVID related.
No, I don't think so at all. Because
Oh,
this was several months ago.
oh, I
It just disappeared. I think the real estate may have been too expensive, or there wasn't as much of a demand. Because you find, you may call it the North American diet, but there's not as much fast food in Mexico as there is in the US or Canada. I mean, it exists, but it's too expensive in many places. You're better off at a little taco stand somewhere where you put a few pesos in and you get your tortilla and something on top of it, and your radishes and things like that.
A lot of these, it's a cultural thing. I mean, many countries still, know how to, eat from the land really well. And so it's
well,
anyway.
Ghee, you talked about ghee earlier. So that's basically clarified butter, and it doesn't rot or decompose because you've taken away the elements that are more fragile.
Yeah, and it's so good for you. And again, with fat, you have to look at this, the element of satiety. Having fat in your diet creates this satiety.
Meaning you feel sassified.
Sassy. You feel sassy and
you feel satisfied. Satiety sounds a little bit to me sometimes almost like
high society.
I'm living in high satiety. Yes, indeed.
High satiety. Yes, it's the same thing. You will feel like you're in high society if you have that level of satiety.
Satiety in society. Oh,
so what satiety is
the notoriety of satiety. Sorry,
you've gone off here. We need to give this man some fat.
Give me some fat. I know where it's at.
Calm you down. See, that's another thing fat does is calms you down.
I need some more fat.
Yes. Sugar raises you.
I had cheese at lunch, which was actually very good. A very good cheese. Yes, some fine Mexican cheese.
Ah, yeah. So cheese is a good source of good fat, and
it can be. Yeah.
Dairy. Whole dairy is always a good source of healthy fat. But satiety is really simply a state of feeling satisfied. You're not wanting more.
Yeah, I think people get so carved up. I see you used to say it with a lot of women who were in our weight loss clinic. They were total carb addicts. I mean, they wouldn't touch a piece of beef or eggs or this or that. But I mean, it was pasta, breads, this, that, pastries and stuff. It's like, wow, I couldn't eat that way. But they're
addictive foods. They're addictive foods. Those carbohydrate foods. Well, those starchy.
But you get good fats and things like dark chocolate, though, don't you?
Yeah, dark chocolate is another good source. Yeah, okay. Dark chocolate and ghee and certainly nuts and seeds, as we talked about, and
our eggies. Don't forget our whole eggs.
Whole eggs, absolutely. So
not the egg whites. Get the whole
it's got a lot of, both. I mean, again, we eat this together. It was made yolk and white.
In the beginning, there was white and there was yolk, and they were one.
And this is the most important thing, is to have them together. You have so many important nutrition, so much great nutrition in having a whole egg. So,
but like the whole egg white, people making egg white omelets and stuff like that, I have never understood that.
Yeah, I mean,
weird.
You want the fat of the yolk. You want the fat of the yolk. So you got the fat and then the protein of the white. Perfect. Yeah. It's perfect. It's a perfect protein. That's what I learned in university. And I think it was Nutrition 101 course. Mm-hmm. The egg is a perfect protein food. Yep. Perfect protein food. So
if you could make a protein bar made out of egg and it wasn't going to spoil, that would be quite the interesting snack.
It was interesting when Barry Sears came out with a Zone book when it was in the 90s. I was trying to create a Zone bar at that time, like without any grains. And I was trying and experimenting different things. And I finally got something, but it would have been really expensive to mass manufacture that. And it was based on cottage cheese.
Really? So
Yeah.
you had your 40-30-30
Yeah.
bar, cottage cheese bar.
It was interesting. It was quite interesting. And I can't remember all the ingredients, but that was the base protein. I think there might have been some nut butter, but I can't remember. But yeah, so it was cottage cheese. So that's what it was. So so we have coconut oil, coconut butter. Again, a saturated fat, but a healthy saturated fat. So we have saturated fat, monounsaturated, and polysaturated. So,
Poly want a fat.
yeah. So, so these are that's kind of how it's broken down. So coconut oil has something called monolaurin in it, which is an antiviral. And so we're talking a lot about this now because of
immune boosting.
Yeah. So monolaurin and coconut oil. What else in coconut oil? So again, so that's it. And
what about other sources of fat like fatty fish or things like that?
Fatty fish, omega-3, totally a great source of omega-3. So sardines and salmon, those are good fatty fish. But you can also supplement with omega-3s. EPA, DHA. You want to make sure that's in good balance with your in your supplement, in your fish oil. Here again, you want to make sure that it's a good quality omega-3 for fish
oil. So how do you determine good quality? Because that's what people will be thinking right now. How do I know that my discount Costco, Walmart fish oil isn't good enough or is good enough?
Well, I mean, I think sometimes a lot of these supplements are of course mass produced, but they're deodorized, so you don't know if the oil has gone rancid because they've covered up the rancidity. Mm-hmm. And you could say that sometimes when it repeats, like you have it and it keeps repeating, that could be an indicator, but that's not really it. What happens with that, or what we used to believe, was that there was a small amount of protein left in while it was being processed. So that was what was causing the problem. There are certain brands I like. I'm sure you like Nordic Naturals.
I do like Nordic Naturals. I like the Metagenics ones. I mean, they tend to be some
for Health and Thorne. I mean, these are
Thorne is good. Yeah. I mean, and the question of ratios, that's a little controversy there, EPA versus DHA and how much it should be of each. But that's where you want to consult with a medical professional, a nutritionist, somebody who really knows the ins and outs of what's best for your body.
Yeah, someone who knows about supplements for sure. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of professionals who are in health professionals that don't really know, and that's not their expertise. So they often defer to or refer you to someone who is well-versed in this for sure. So what else I want to talk about? The ketogenic diet. Mm-hmm. It's been so popular. So is the paleo in, paleo gone? Now it's keto.
No, there's still a lot of paleo around.
It's not number one. It was not number one. And I don't know if any of these diets are number one at this point. I mean, there's, the fasting programs, the intermittent fasting programs, they've been becoming popular. Like I'm talking about the last 3 to 4 years, or maybe 2 to 3 years, the most popular. So ketogenic, I have been, advising or working with the particular program. We used to call it, I still call it the Skinny Jeans weight loss program. I definitely do. And it was based on a small amount of ketosis, going into a small amount of ketosis, which essentially means you're burning fat instead of glucose. So you're using energy and you're burning body fat as a fuel source. So the Atkins program, which was very popular about 20 years ago, that program puts you in a very high amount of fat, ketosis, sorry. And so my program was small amounts of ketosis. So the body is not stressed so much, so it's enough. It's a healthy program where you're going into a little amount or small, because if you look at the ketosis strips, it's usually, it usually says small. Anyway, the Bear strips used to say just small, but now it's just a range. So it's enough to do the job, but it's not too much, so it's not causing potential damage to your body when you're maybe detoxifying too quickly, and that causes you to not feel very well.
Well, but don't you, I mean, because the weight loss clinic that I had did a lot of ketogenic type program. I think we probably had no more than 50 to 60 grams of carb per day, but then we also supplemented with vitamins and minerals and digestive enzymes and drinking lots of water and special teas and you name it, because the concern was that we also didn't want them to lose weight too quickly, because you want to preserve lean muscle mass as much as and organ tissue. Exactly. Because if your body is in a state of distress, it's going to eat your own muscles and organs if you're not careful. So.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want any lean wasting. And remember, I was telling you about the phone because I didn't put the phone away.
It's okay.
It's going to be ringing.
That's opportunity calling.
Yes, it's the fat doctor calling, or the
PHAT, or the.
Yes. Oh, well, actually, my husband's dermatologist is Dr. No.
No?
NGO.
Oh, he's an NGO, not a non-governmental organization.
She is an NGO.
Sorry.
Dr. NGO.
I am so sexist today.
And I said they're doing it virtually, of course,
Yeah.
So her staff said, I said, how is she going to assess his skin and everything? And she says, well, she has the Dr. No method.
The Dr. No method. It actually sounds like a James Bond
movie. I know.
Dr. No.
Hilarious. I couldn't stop laughing. So anyway, we're going to have they're going to do the No method. Dr. No. Dr. No.
No way.
Yeah. So it's NGO. So, I mean, this whole ketogenic concept is actually good, and the ketogenic diet really was popularized mostly for epileptic patients. To again, here we're talking about calming down the myelin sheath. We're talking about calming down the system, and that's what fat does. It causes satiety and it calms you down.
Well, yeah, with that myelin sheath, it's interesting. If you start losing the insulators, the myelin sheath to your nerves, you can't possibly get the nerve impulses coming through the way that they should. They get dispersed because you're not insulated. Just like if you took the insulation off the power lines up above you, you wouldn't get electricity being transmitted as well.
Yeah, so important. And there are diseases that...
the demyelinating diseases. Yeah.
Exactly. It's very, very
Lou Gehrig's was one of them. I remember that.
Mm-hmm.
The ALS. I had a patient with that too. I mentioned that to you once before. He couldn't swallow. That's how I knew. Neurologist.
Well, that's what my husband has. He has myasthenia gravis, and he has serious swallowing issues. Myasthenia gravis is an autoimmune disease, and he's very serious issues with choking and gagging and inability to swallow. So we actually have a suction machine in case it gets, in case we need to, but he's not able to, drink very much. He just drinks this renal kind of a renal version of Ensure. Mm-hmm. So,
fats. What about nuts? Nuts and seeds
nuts
and things.
Seeds. Excellent sources.
Nuts.
Yeah.
What are like walnuts and other things, or almonds? What's the deal?
Walnuts, Brazil nuts,
Brazil nuts,
pistachio, Brazil nuts.
I go to Rio. Macadamia nuts or no?
Yeah, all nuts,
Oh, okay.
all nuts and seeds.
Cool.
And that doesn't not include peanuts because they are a legume. They are not
peanuts. Man, I've had a lot of trouble with peanuts sometimes. I think it was more having to do with the alpha toxins, the fungus that grows on the peanuts than actually the peanut protein itself. But yeah, they are legumes, or legumes as we like to say.
Legumes, yes. I think I'm developing not necessarily an allergy, but definitely a sensitivity.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can have a few. I had some trail mix, and I've got people going shopping for me, of course, and you can't buy anything small at Costco, right? So it's this big, this trail mix.
You get your 45-pound trail mix.
Yeah. I mean, okay, 1 day is fine, 2 days fine, and then 3 or 4 days. I said, no, I have to give this to my donut loving.
You wish you were off the trail at that point.
Yeah, it's just I just can't. I've noticed that I've had reactions, like usually skin reactions and a little bit of throat, not anaphylactic, but
Yeah, some of the peanut stuff, I'd start coughing, and then I was like thinking to myself, yeah, that's too many peanuts, or that particular batch probably had a lot of fungus on it, or who knows,
I was at Sprouts. Let's say I was at a store, health food store.
I was at an anonymous store, which rhymes with pouts.
Anyway, I'm sure it's not the only store. I'm sure Sprouts, I'm sure Whole Foods, I'm sure many stores, but they were raw peanuts. And I said, this is really not a good idea, having raw peanuts.
I think that sometimes too many raw foods can be a bad deal, particularly if there's something growing on them. A little cooking or roasting is a good idea.
Yeah, and they're hard to digest, period. So it's interesting because I never had a reaction to that before, but I think with most sort of allergic / food sensitivities, it's just how often you eat these things.
It's how often, and it's the quality of the
quality,
food,
absolutely.
Yeah, there's definitely a big difference. I mean, I noticed that I had a preference a few years ago because of the good fats to move from peanut butter to almond butter, and I found that to be a lot more tolerable.
Yeah, well, they're more hypoallergenic, so to speak. Yeah. But again, they're a nut, and peanuts are legumes. So
legumes, yeah.
I used to, about 20, 15 years ago, I used to buy, I still do, this raw almond from Marantha. I think it's called Marantha. And it was my dessert. 2 tablespoons dessert, done. Again, satiety.
It's very satisfying. I will say, a cup.
And it has a sweetness. It has a sweetness, an inherent sweetness in it.
This happens to me not in terms of sweetness, but in terms of feeling satisfied. If I have, for example, a can of sardines, I can go on for hours with no problem whatsoever.
You love your sardines.
I do, and I think it's the combination of protein and the fats.
Yeah,
and they're cheap. I mean, you're looking at maybe I like some of the ones that the place that rhymes with Raider Nose, and those were pretty inexpensive.
No, we can say them. I mean,
are we? So it's like
we're not saying anything bad. People are shopping there.
Raider hose. Raider hose. No more hose.
Raider hose and
later hose. That's rhymes with later hose. But they were relatively cheap. I remember years ago I used to get them for 99 cents a can, but then they just keep going up in price. But now they're maybe $1.19, $1.29 or so, and they're in water instead of soybean oil, which is good because soybean oil is not one of the best oils in the world to be ingesting all the time. And I just found they're incredibly satisfying. I can go for 3.5, 5 hours just on a can of sardines.
I wonder if they're less expensive because a lot of people don't eat them.
I think people don't eat them. And it's a sustainable fatty fish. You're not going to run out of, it's just amazing.
We had it growing up. My dad loved them. I mean, I think my mother did, but my dad definitely loved them.
My dad made us sardine sandwiches. Who does that to a child?
Yeah. Well, what we used to have too is pickled herring.
Yeah. My grandma loved her pickle. I like the pickled herring actually, but we could only get it at my grandmother's house because my mother hated fish. So I like the pickled herring either in the cream sauce
jar,
or the other one. Yeah, in the jar. Yeah. And then she loved her pickled pig's feet.
Oh yeah, we had that. I mean, I think it's the European thing.
Very European. They'll pickle anything.
Yeah.
If there's a pigeon walking by, there's going to be pickled pigeons. So.
Yeah. So these are like foods that, like, I grew up in a European household, and so I didn't mind the herring. Actually, I liked it. I didn't mind the salad.
It was actually pretty tasty, the pickled herring. I'm surprised.
Yeah. But the pig's feet. Oh, my mother used to make it.
Oh wow.
From scratch. Yeah. So yeah, and I mean, talk about all that food. I mean, you've got the gelatin and the collagen and all of these really amazing healthy things going into your gut.
I just remember, so my
And she
grandmother
made
would.
sauerkraut from scratch too.
And the sauerkraut's amazing because you're going to get all those wonderful little probiotics floating around your system. I think it's probably why a lot of these Germans were living as long as they did.
Yeah.
And some of the reasons. I mean, my grandmother ate a lot of pork chops, but it didn't seem to bother her at all. She lived to be 96, and she was relatively healthy.
Yeah, I mean, I never liked sauerkraut growing up, but it was always there. I mean, literally, it was a vat that was about 3 feet high. You know, one of those big beer vat kind of barrels?
Like the beer barrels. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't like it either as a kid, but I've developed a taste for it. It's almost like as you age, I hated olives. Now I love olives, and olives are a good source of fat too. Yeah.
Thank you for mentioning olives.
Going right along.
Extra virgin olive oil. Again, you've got to get a good quality extra virgin olive oil, and there's a lot of not so great ones. The cheaper ones, of course, it's not always a guarantee that they're not going to be good, but definitely you want to go for good quality. EVO.
I mean,
extra virgin olive oil.
You can get an extra virgin. Yeah, you can get an extra virgin olive oil. It doesn't have to, take up your entire paycheck, but you'll see some that are organic and some that are. I've never
I go to Lederhosen for mine.
Later, you go to Lederhose. Lederhose.
Yeah, I go there for mine.
Yes. We also Aldi is a good place. We like that one too. So
yeah, I didn't ever hear of the name Aldi until like a couple of months ago.
They're back in the East Coast. They're everywhere. Of course, in Germany you have Aldi North and Aldi. Yeah. So I think one of them sold
Trader Joe.
One of them purchased Trader Joe's, and it's interesting because of the two Aldis, one of them would carry cigarettes and the other one did not. Mm-hmm. And that was the only major distinction between the two. Yeah, it's crazy how that works.
Interesting. Yeah.
And we've been to that. Actually, Maggie's been to their headquarters in the U.S. headquarters in Chicago area. And it's fascinating.
Maggie, your wife.
My wife, Maggie, yes.
Maggie.
Not Maggie May or anything like that.
Who is an expert in also Mexican cooking.
Yeah, she is a Mexican food blogger. She develops recipes, does videos and how-tos, and you'll find her all over the place. Mama Maggie's Kitchen.
Mama Maggie's Kitchen.
She's got a lot of healthy recipes too. She did a lot of things for vegan because my brother-in-law, her brother, was a vegan for quite some time. And so she was trying to find ways to get away from cheese and other things like that, or at least get into vegetarian, lower fat options. Because, of course, in many cultures, particularly in Mexico and some other Latin American countries, there's a high incidence of diabetes. And so you actually do want to lower some of the fat and the carbohydrates in order to get people a little healthier, because there's a genetic tendency for that sort of thing.
We had an aide here. This is when we were cooking, when my husband wasn't getting Meals on Wheels. So last summer we had someone who was from Mexico, and he was making a lot of Mexican dishes. And he made this extraordinary guacamole, which was guac, sour cream, feta cheese, and onions and cilantro. And that was it. But it was so rich. It was so rich.
Interesting. Feta. Really, it might have been queso fresco.
No, it was feta, because that's what we bought. And so we used the feta.
Oh, I see. He used what he could get out of your non-Mexican kitchen.
Well, he was the one who was saying that it was excuse me for a moment. He was the one who was saying that it was what he used. So I think it's a version of the cheese.
Yeah, there are several hard cheeses in Mexico.
But this isn't a hard cheese. Feta is soft.
Well, yeah, but semi-soft is what I'm thinking of. As opposed to, you're not going to get Mexican brie, for example.
Yeah, no, brie. It would be called brio.
Brio.
I just ordered brio, which is actually an asthma medication.
Probably not good to name your cheese.
No, brio.
It's something similar to a medication.
Not at all. Not at all. So,
what other fats? What are some good fats? Feta has good fat in it.
Cheese, all sort of whole dairy foods, or
cheesy.
Cheese and milk, and of course, things like goat. Sometimes it's easier to digest.
Hey, what about yogurts?
Yeah, that's included in there.
in your dairy, but like could you have goat yogurt?
You also got the probiotics, but it's not a really good source of probiotics. Yogurt, you want
Now, unless you make your own.
yeah, but you want to take you want to take your own probiotic in a supplement form usually.
Most of the time,
Yeah.
I think people. What? I'm sorry. I was going to say people sometimes have this notion. Hey, I've got my Dannon, rhymes with Gannon. I've got all the whatever it is, and as soon as that stuff is sent out from the manufacturer, the bad bacteria start battling the probiotics that are in there. And by the time you get it off a shelf, there really aren't that many good bacteria floating around in there.
I mean, kefir is probably a better source.
Yeah, I would say so.
So kefir, kimchi, sauerkraut, these are more prebiotic, but they're also a good source of probiotics. So
kefir's the other ones. Yeah,
kefir and kimchi.
Kimchi. Well, kimchi falls into that pickled, sour,
exactly.
fermented foods. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're off on a different track, but I mean, as you can see, everything blends into everything else, the sugar and the fat.
Don't blend sardines in your smoothie. I can tell you that.
I'm sure some people have. So, I mean, whatever works. And, we can certainly talk a little bit more about digestion next time too, because that's always a good thing to discuss, like how important digestion is. But I know we're probably wrapping up soon, and
is that what's happening?
Just the fats, ma'am.
Just the fats. I'm sorry, I got into some carbs.
Yeah. Good one.
We can wrap up. So since the paleo diet is no longer in vogue and the ketogenic diet is no longer in vogue, what's the diet for the new normal?
We could say flatten the carb, right?
Flatten the carb. I did say that the other day. I need to flatten the carbs.
Oh, well, it must have
been.
I need
to flatten my curves.
Other.
Flatten my curves by flattening the carb.
Flattening the carbs. So yeah, the new normal diet is going to be a little bit different, but it's going to have a lot of the elements of what we're talking about here. And in fact, we're working on launching something in the next few weeks, something that maybe a course, maybe just something packaged to help you in your dietary habits and your stress management and anything else that you need to really, really stay strong and healthy during this period, because it's not over. This is not ending like tomorrow. I mean, this is a long haul process, and so many question marks. The big question mark, no answers, but I think one of the biggest answers that we agree on, Christopher and I, is maintaining the basics to keep you as strong as possible and as healthy as possible. So we're working on, and we would love your feedback on what sort of things you're looking to know more about with regards to health, nutrition, weight gain. I know a lot of people are, we talked about the COVID-15 or the quarantine 15.
I think I like quarantine 15 and maybe the COVID 25. I think people are going to fall into that category if they're not careful.
Yeah, I mean, I've had some responses already on Facebook, that people are somewhat challenged by this phenomenon of being at home and not knowing, being fearful for sure. And stress eating is one of those things. And, you're not as active as you once were. Right. So, yeah, it's a combination.
And I think that, even though you may not know exactly what form this program is going to take, what we're mostly interested in, as Monika was mentioning, is, what are your greatest challenges right now? And what are your immediate needs? What do you really need right now to fix things for you?
Yeah. Health-wise, primarily.
Health-wise, yeah.
And maintaining your,
your equilibrium.
Yeah. And staying happy. And having, doing the best you can, a stronger immune system, being able to take care of yourself. So that's what's coming up, and that's what we're working on, right?
So if you have any suggestions as to what your major challenges are right now, or what you would like to learn more about, just stick something in the comments down below here, or even send us a private message.
And it could be digestion, it could be weight gain, it could be stress management, it could be healthy foods, nutrition, how do I exercise, recipes, healthy cooking. Yes, any of those.
Oh, and I should also mention that those of you who are seeing this in a different location, we have a free private group called Total Health Live, same name as this broadcast, as well as a YouTube channel. And Total Health Live, you'll find all these broadcasts over there on the YouTube channel, because we don't know if Facebook will delete these things or not.
Hopefully not.
Hopefully not. But there are no guarantees in life, as we are now finding out.
There are no guarantees. It's a big question mark.
It's a big question mark, but you can get greater certainty through clarity of what's working. So.
Yeah.
All right.
It.
I think that's it. We'll be back on Friday. We don't know. What are we doing on Friday?
Well, I sort of posed the idea of possibly talking about digestion.
Oh, that's good. Well,
how to digest your life.
You posed, and we can compose something along those lines. All right. Digestion. It's not what you're eating, it's what's eating you. Sometimes that's the stress part.
That's on my book.
It's on your book. It was also in my father's office in 1966. So
yeah,
well, not your book. Your book wasn't around.
It wasn't. No, it was the Vogelmann edition.
It was the Vogelmann.
Pre-edition.
The Birdman.
Yeah.
The pre-edition.
Vogelmann.
All right, we'll be back on Friday at 5 Eastern. No, sorry, 4 Eastern, 1 Pacific. I'm thinking of the next broadcast I'm going to with another episode of Total Health Live.
See you soon.
See you soon as I find the button to end this thing. Okay, bye.